The dust never settled properly on Kepler Station. It hung in the thin air like tiny ghosts, dancing in the pale light that filtered through the dome windows. Kethmar wiped his scaled hand across his breathing mask and squinted at the dig site below. 3 months they had been here. 3 months of careful digging and gentle brushing. 3 months of finding nothing but broken pottery and rusted metal scraps. The Villani Archaeological Council was getting impatient. They wanted results or they wanted their funding back. Another empty room called out Vex from the bottom of the pit. The young Threx worker clicked his mandibles in frustration. His 6 arms moved in quick patterns as he cleared debris from what looked like another storage area. Kethmar climbed down the metal ladder into the excavation site. The dig went deep into the planet's crust. Someone had built this place to last. The walls were smooth and clean despite being buried for centuries. No rust, no decay, just perfect preservation. This civilization was more advanced than we thought, Kethmar said to his assistant Nala. The Nephitai female floated beside him in her water suit, her tentacles moving in slow waves. Look at these walls. Our best builders could not make something this durable. Nala's voice came through the water in her suit, translated by the communication device on her chest. The dating scans show this place is at least 400 years old. But the materials are unknown to our databases. 400 years. That meant this place was built during the time of the Great Expansion, when dozens of species spread across the galaxy looking for new worlds to colonize. Most of those early settlements failed. The beings who built them either died out or moved on to better planets. Kethmar had studied many dead civilizations. They all left similar traces. Religious buildings, art weapons, simple tools, the basic things that all thinking beings needed to survive. But this place was different. The rooms were too clean, too organized, like someone had planned every detail before they built it. Kethmar, Vex's voice echoed from deeper in the pit. Come see this. The archaeologist hurried down another level. The Threx worker stood before a wall that looked different from the others. This one had symbols carved into its surface, not random scratches or decorative patterns. Real writing. A language, but it was not any language in the galactic database. Have you tried the translation matrix? Kethmar asked. 3 times, Vex replied. The computer says the language does not exist. But look at this. He pointed to a section of the wall where the symbols seemed to form a pattern. There is something behind here. The ground scanning equipment shows a hollow space. Kethmar ran his clawed fingers over the symbols. They felt warm under his touch. That was impossible. Nothing should be warm down here. The planet had no internal heat source. No active geology. It was dead stone all the way to the core. Get the plasma cutter, he told Vex, but be careful. We do not know what is back there. The blue flame of the plasma cutter made short work of the wall material. As the outer layer fell away, they found another barrier underneath. This one was made of the same unknown material as the walls, but it was transparent. Like crystal or very pure glass. Through the clear barrier, they could see a room. A small chamber filled with devices that glowed with soft light. At the center sat a table holding 3 objects that looked like large gems. Each gem pulsed with different colors. Blue, green, red. The light came from inside them, moving like liquid fire. Data crystals, Nala whispered. But I have never seen any like these. Kethmar had seen data crystals before. Every advanced civilization used them to store information. But normal crystals were small and clear. These were the size of his head and filled with swirling energy. Can you break through the barrier? He asked Vex. The Threx worked for another hour before the crystal barrier finally cracked. As it fell apart, warm air rushed out of the chamber. Air that smelled like growing things, like life. Impossible. This planet had been dead for millions of years. Kethmar stepped into the chamber first. The 3 crystals sat on a metal table that looked like it was made from a single piece of perfectly smooth material. No joints, no welds. Just one continuous surface that reflected their lights like a mirror. The preservation is perfect, Nala observed as she floated into the room behind him. Everything looks new. Kethmar reached for the blue crystal. As his fingers touched its surface, symbols appeared in the air above it. Holographic writing that shifted and changed as he watched. The translation device in his ear began working immediately. Historical record. Final entry. Species designation, human. The word made Kethmar pause. Human. He knew that word. Everyone in the galaxy knew it. Humans were one of the minor species that had appeared during the Great Expansion. They had achieved basic space travel and established a few colonies before disappearing about 300 years ago. Most scholars believe they had simply died out from disease or war. It happened to many species during those chaotic times. But if humans had built this place, they were far more advanced than anyone realized. The holographic display continued. If you are reading this record, it means our concealment protocols have failed. We hoped this day would never come, but we prepared for it nonetheless. Kethmar felt his blood run cold. Concealment protocols. That implied the humans had hidden something important enough to bury deep underground on a dead planet. Vex, Nala, come look at this. His team gathered around the crystal as more text appeared. To whoever finds this archive, know that what you discover here will change how you understand the galaxy. We are not what your histories claim we were. We were never the primitive species your records describe. We were something else entirely. The display showed images now. Star maps, technical diagrams, pictures of ships and weapons that looked far more advanced than anything the current galactic civilizations possessed. These cannot be human creations, Vex said, his mandibles clicking nervously. Humans barely achieved interstellar flight before they vanished. But the evidence was right in front of them. Ship designs that could fold space, weapons that could crack planets, technology that made the greatest achievements of the Vellani Empire look like children's toys. There is more, Nala said, pointing to the other crystals. 2 more data storage units. Kethmar activated the green crystal next. This one contained different information. Personnel records, military reports, technical manuals, all written in the same human language but dealing with subjects that made his head spin. Dimensional mathematics, quantum manipulation, something called consciousness transfer protocols, terms that existed at the very edge of theoretical science. But most disturbing were the tactical files. Detailed analyses of every major alien species in the galaxy, their military capabilities, their psychological weaknesses, their social structures. Information that could only have been gathered through centuries of careful observation and study. The humans had been watching everyone, learning about everyone, planning for everyone. This changes everything, Kethmar whispered. The red crystal activated automatically as he stared at it. A final message appeared in the air above them. The words glowed brighter than the others, as if the crystal was putting all its remaining energy into displaying them. We leave this record as both warning and gift. The galaxy will face threats it cannot imagine. When that time comes, you will need to be stronger than you are now. We have given you the tools. Use them wisely. The message faded, but the implications remained. Somewhere in this archive was technology beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen, and the humans who created it were still out there. Somewhere. Kethmar looked at his team. Both Vex and Nala stared at the crystals with expressions of fear and wonder. They had come here looking for pottery and old tools. Instead, they had found evidence that everything the galaxy believed about humans was wrong. Completely wrong. And if the humans were still alive somewhere in the darkness between the stars, they were far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The discovery would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. But first, they needed to understand exactly what they had found. Kethmar began making plans to transport the crystals back to the main research station. Whatever secrets the humans had left behind, the galaxy needed to know about them, even if those secrets changed everything. 300 years earlier, the stars looked different through the bridge windows of the UES horizon. Captain Jiho Park stood with his hands behind his back, watching the Vellani trade fleet approach. 30 massive ships moving in perfect formation, each one 10 times larger than his small exploration vessel. "Sir, they are requesting permission to board," said Communications Officer Hyun Lee. Her voice stayed calm, but Jiho could hear the tension underneath. Everyone on the bridge felt it. This was humanity's first meeting with an alien civilization. "Grant their request," Jiho replied, "but keep the weapon systems ready, just in case." Chief Engineer Mina Ko looked up from her console. "Captain, their technology readings are off the charts. Those ships could destroy us without breaking formation." Jiho nodded. He had studied the sensor reports. The Vellani possessed energy weapons, force fields, and faster-than-light travel systems that made human technology look primitive. But Jiho had also noticed something else in the data, something his crew had not seen yet. The aliens were predictable. Their formation was textbook perfect. Their approach pattern followed standard military doctrine. They moved like beings who had never faced a real threat, never had to adapt or improvise. Tactical Officer Daeho Lim, what do you make of their defensive posture? Jiho asked. Daeho studied his screens. They have strong shields and heavy weapons, sir. But their ship designs show no signs of learning from combat experience. Everything looks theoretical, like they built these ships from a manual rather than battlefield experience. Exactly. Jiho allowed himself a small smile. They have superior technology, but they think like engineers, not warriors. The airlock cycled open, and 3 Villani delegates entered the bridge. Tall beings with scaled skin and large eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Their leader wore robes that sparkled with embedded technology. Greetings, humans, the lead Villani said through a translation device. I am Trademaster Vector of the Villani Commercial Empire. We welcome you to the galactic community. Jiho stepped forward and bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that made the aliens relax visibly. Thank you for this honor, Trademaster. I am Captain Jiho Park, representing the United Earth Systems. Your species shows promise, Vector continued. Basic space travel, organized government, unified planetary control. With proper guidance, humans could become valuable members of our trade network. The words sounded friendly, but Jiho heard the underlying message. The Villani saw humans as potential assets, resources to be managed and controlled. We would be honored to learn from your advanced civilization, Jiho replied, playing the role of the grateful primitive. Our people have much to offer in return. Over the following hours, Jiho and his crew hosted the Villani delegates. They showed them human art, music, and culture. They demonstrated human manufacturing capabilities and shared samples of Earth's unique biological resources. But while the aliens focused on cataloging human assets, Jiho and his team were doing something else entirely. They were learning. Minako studied the Villani translation devices, memorizing their technical specifications. Daeho Lim observed their military protocols and defensive assumptions. Communications Officer Hyun Lee recorded every detail of their social interactions and power structures. Your species fascinates us, Vector told Jiho as the meeting wound down. You show remarkable adaptability. Most primitive species we encounter are rigid in their thinking, set in their ways, but humans seem to learn quickly. We have had to adapt to survive, Jiho replied truthfully. Our planet has many different environments, many different challenges. Yes, we noticed that in your historical records. Constant warfare, environmental changes, social upheavals. Most species would have destroyed themselves under such conditions, but humans thrived. The Trademaster's tone suggested he found this both impressive and concerning. We offer your species protected status within our empire, Vector announced. Full membership in the Galactic Trade Network. Access to advanced technology and medical treatments. In exchange, you would provide raw materials, labor, and cultural contributions to the greater community. Jiho pretended to consider the offer carefully. In reality, he had expected something like this from the moment the alien ships appeared on their sensors. Advanced civilizations always sought to control less developed ones. It was a pattern as old as intelligence itself. This is a generous offer, Jiho said, but I must consult with my government before making such an important decision. Of course. We understand the need for proper procedures. Vector smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. We will establish a permanent embassy in your solar system, while you consider our proposal, to help facilitate communication and cultural exchange. After the Villani delegates returned to their ships, Jiho gathered his senior officers in his private cabin. Opinions? He asked. They want to own us, Minako said bluntly. That protected status offer is just slavery with better marketing. Agreed, added Daeho Lim. But their military shows serious weaknesses. They have overwhelming firepower, but they think in straight lines. No creativity in their tactics. What concerns me most, said Hyun Lee, is how they talked about other species. They mentioned dozens of civilizations under their protection. This is not their first conquest. Jiho pulled up a holographic display showing the alien fleet's formation patterns. They succeed because they offer a choice that is not really a choice. Join willingly and prosper as junior partners, or resist and face destruction. So what do? Minako asked. We accept their offer, Jiho said, but we also begin preparing for the day when acceptance is no longer enough. His officers stared at him. Sir? Daeho Lim asked. Think long-term, Jiho explained. These aliens have conquered dozens of species using the same methods. Superior technology and overwhelming force. But they make one critical assumption, which is, they assume that primitive species will stay primitive. They never consider that their junior partners might learn from them, might adapt and grow stronger. Jiho activated a secure communication channel to Earth Command. We are going to play a very long game. We will be the grateful, harmless humans they expect us to be. We will learn everything they can teach us. We will study their weaknesses and map their territories. He paused, looking at each of his officers. And when we are ready, we will show them what humans are really capable of. The meeting with the Villani marked the beginning of humanity's greatest deception. For the next 3 centuries, humans would appear weak and grateful while secretly preparing for a war that most of them would never live to see. But Jiho Park had planted the seeds of that future victory. He had established the protocols and principles that would guide human development for generations to come. The Long Game Protocol, as it came to be known, was humanity's masterpiece of strategic thinking. And the aliens never saw it coming. They were too busy congratulating themselves on finding such compliant new subjects to notice that their subjects were learning to become their replacements. 76 years after first contact, Captain Young-Ho Kim stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Seoul, watching the distress beacon pulse on his navigation screen. The signal came from the Cygnus sector, a region of space that most spacers avoided due to its unstable stellar phenomena and dangerous radiation fields. Sir, the signal is definitely Nephti in origin, reported scanner, operator Mina Park. But it's coming from coordinates that show no registered colonies or research stations. Could be a survey ship that ran into trouble, suggested navigation. Officer Seok-Jin Cho. The Cygnus sector is known for its spatial anomalies. Young-Ho nodded, but something felt wrong about the situation. The New Seoul was a human colony transport, carrying 8,000 settlers to their new home in the Kepler system. They were 3 days off their planned route. Responding to this distress call would delay their arrival by at least a week, but the Galactic Maritime Code was clear. All vessels must render aid to ships in distress, regardless of species or political affiliation. Set course for the beacon, Young-Ho ordered, but keep our defensive systems online. I want to be ready for anything. Intelligence Officer Soo-Young Choi looked up from her station. Captain, I'm picking up some interesting readings from that sector. High levels of exotic particles and what looks like artificial structures on the 3rd planet of the Kepler 442 system. Young-Ho felt his pulse quicken. Artificial structures in an unexplored system meant only one thing: archaeological sites. And archaeological sites often contain technology from extinct civilizations. For 76 years, humanity had been playing the role of grateful junior partners in the galactic community. They had built colonies on the worlds the other species did not want. They had provided raw materials and simple manufactured goods to the galactic trade network. They had appeared content with their position as protected subjects of the greater powers. But behind that facade, humans had been busy. Every colony ship carried hidden scanning equipment and survey teams. Every human trading post served as an intelligence gathering station. Every diplomatic mission included covert archaeological specialists. The aliens had taught humans many things, but they had also revealed their own weaknesses, their predictable thinking patterns, their assumption that technology alone guaranteed superiority, their tendency to dismiss species they considered primitive. How long until we reach the beacon? Young-Ho asked. 6 hours at current speed, Seok-Jin replied. Good. That gives us time to prepare. Young-Ho activated the ship's internal communication system. All department heads to the bridge. We have a situation that requires careful handling. Within minutes, his senior staff had assembled. Chief Medical Officer Yoon Seo-jung, Head of Colonial Affairs Jin Yuk-woo, Lead Engineer Tae-young Kim, and most importantly, Archaeological Specialist Hye-jin Yoon. We are responding to a distress call in the Cygnus sector, Young-Ho began. But our scans show something more interesting than a simple rescue mission. He activated the holographic display showing the sensor readings from the mysterious planet. Artificial structures, possibly ruins from a pre-spaceflight civilization. Hye-jin Yoon leaned forward, her eyes bright with interest. The particle signatures suggest advanced materials, possibly quantum-stabilized alloys. which would make them incredibly valuable, added Taeyong Kim. Technology like that could advance human engineering by decades. Exactly, Young-ho said, which means we need to secure the site before anyone else discovers it. Soo-young Choi pulled up a tactical display. The Nephtai research vessel appears to be trapped in the planet's gravity well. Their engines are failing, but they're in stable orbit. We have time to work. Here's what we're going to do, Young-ho announced. We'll divide into 2 teams. Team 1 will handle the rescue operation and provide cover for Team 2. Team 2 will conduct a rapid archaeological survey and secure any technology of interest. What if the Nephtai discover what we're doing? Eun Seo-young asked. They won't, Young-ho smiled. Because we're going to be the helpful, grateful humans they expect us to be. We'll rescue their people, provide medical aid, and offer to help with their research, while secretly copying everything they find, Soo-young added. Exactly. The plan worked perfectly. When the new soul arrived at the distress beacon, they found the Nephtai survey ship Depth Seeker slowly losing orbit around the planet. Engine failure had left the vessel unable to escape the gravity well, and their life support systems were operating at reduced capacity. Young-ho's rescue team worked efficiently to evacuate the alien scientists, while his archaeological team conducted their covert survey of the planet's surface. The ruins they discovered exceeded their wildest expectations. Ancient structures that defied conventional physics, weapon systems capable of manipulating matter at the quantum level, power sources that seemed to draw energy directly from the fabric of space itself. But most importantly, they found intact data storage systems containing the complete technical specifications for the alien technology. By the time the Villani authorities arrived to investigate the incident, the new soul had completed its rescue mission and was preparing to depart. The human captain presented the situation as a simple matter of rendering aid to fellow spacers. The Nephtai were conducting routine geological surveys when their engines failed. Young-ho reported to Villani Sector Commander Kelmoth. We provided emergency assistance and helped stabilize their vessel. Your quick response likely saved their lives, Kelmoth replied approvingly. The Empire appreciates such dedication to the common good. We were happy to help, Young-ho said with genuine-sounding humility. It's what any civilized species would do. What he did not mention was that his survey team had already transmitted complete scans of the alien ruins to hidden human research facilities throughout the galaxy. Or that human engineers were already beginning to reverse engineer technology that would make their species a match for any power in the galaxy. The incident became a pattern that repeated across human space. Colony ships and trading vessels would consistently arrive first at archaeological sites, always with plausible explanations for their presence, always appearing helpful and harmless. The aliens began to notice the pattern, but they attributed it to human curiosity rather than any organized intelligence operation. Humans had a reputation for being interested in old things and forgotten history. It seemed natural that they would be drawn to ruins and ancient mysteries. None of the alien powers realized that they were watching the systematic collection of the most dangerous technologies in the galaxy. Technologies that humanity was quietly studying, improving, and preparing to use. The seeds of the war that would reshape galactic civilization were planted not in military academies or weapons laboratories, but in the holds of innocent-looking colony ships crewed by helpful, grateful humans who always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. By the time the galaxy realized what humanity had been doing, it was already too late to stop them. Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo Lee had waited his entire life for this moment. Standing on the command bridge of the dreadnought Incheon's Pride, he watched as humanity's true fleet emerged from the darkness between the stars. For 150 years, humans had been building these ships in the empty spaces where no alien sensors could detect them. Massive construction facilities hidden behind rogue planets and dead stars, shipyards that operated in the void, powered by energy sources that the galaxy's greatest scientists said were impossible. Final count. Admiral, reported Fleet Communications Officer Minji Han. 2,047 vessels of all classes. Battlecruisers, carriers, destroyers, and support ships. All crews report ready for combat, added Tactical Coordinator Sunho Park. Weapon systems online. Defensive screens at maximum strength. Hyunwoo nodded, but his attention was focused on the planet below. Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, beautiful and peaceful. home to 8 billion humans who had lived their entire lives under alien protection that was about to end. "Sir, we're receiving priority signals from all human colonies," Minji announced. "The Threx relocation fleets have begun their operations." This was the moment Hyunwoo had been preparing for since joining the fleet 25 years ago. The moment when humanity's long deception would finally be revealed. The Threx Empire had decided that human colonial worlds were perfect locations for their new hive clusters. 17 planets with ideal climate conditions and abundant resources. The fact that 4 million humans lived on those worlds was considered a minor inconvenience. Standard procedure called for population relocation. The humans would be moved to less desirable worlds while the Threx established their breeding colonies. It happened frequently throughout the galaxy. Advanced species claimed the best real estate while primitive species were shuffled to whatever was left over. But this time, the primitive species had other plans. "Launch the first wave," Hyunwoo commanded. The Liberation Fleet moved as one unified force, ships that looked nothing like the crude vessels humanity had shown the galaxy for the past century and a half. These were predators built with technology stolen from a dozen extinct civilizations and improved by human ingenuity. Lead destroyer Captain Unji. Nam piloted her vessel Busan's Thunder through the dimensional fold that brought the fleet into the Kepler system. What she saw there made her jaw clench with anger. Threx hive ships surrounded the human colony of New Jeju, massive organic vessels that looked more like living creatures than manufactured spacecraft. They were already deploying transport pods to the planet's surface, preparing to collect the human population for relocation. "This is Captain Yoonji Nam of the Human Liberation Fleet," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You will immediately cease your operations against human colonial worlds." The response from the Threx fleet commander was predictable. "Unknown vessel, you are interfering with authorized Imperial operations. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." "I was hoping you would say that," Yoonji replied. The Busan's Thunder opened fire with weapons that should not have existed. Energy beams that punched through Threx bioarmor like it was made of paper. Quantum torpedoes that unraveled molecular bonds on contact. Defensive systems that adapted to incoming fire in real time. The first Threx hive ship died in less than 30 seconds. Across 17 star systems, similar battles played out as human ships revealed capabilities that terrified alien commanders. These were not the primitive vessels that the galaxy knew humans possessed. These were ships of war built by a species that had spent generations preparing for this exact moment. Fighter Squadron leader Ji-hoon Yu led his unit against a cluster of Threx interceptors. The alien pilots flew with typical Threx aggression, relying on their superior numbers and firepower to overwhelm their opponents. They discovered too late that human pilots did not think like other species. "Alpha Flight. Execute Pattern 7, Ji-hoon commanded. His fighters scattered in what looked like a panic response. The Threx moved to exploit the apparent confusion, diving in for easy kills. Instead, they flew directly into a trap. The human fighters had not scattered randomly. They had positioned themselves to create overlapping fields of fire that caught the Threx formation in a devastating crossfire. Within minutes, the entire alien squadron was destroyed. But the most shocking moment came when the Volani Empire's response fleet arrived in the Arcturus system. Admiral Vecnos commanded 300 warships, confident that even if the humans had somehow acquired advanced weapons, they could not match the firepower of a full Imperial battle group. He was wrong. The human fleet that met him was not just technologically superior, it was strategically superior. Every move the Volani made was anticipated and countered. Every tactical doctrine they employed was turned against them. "How are they doing this?" demanded Volani Fleet Captain Terval as his formations were systematically destroyed. "They cannot predict our every move." What the Volani did not understand was that humans had been studying alien psychology and tactics for 150 years. Every military exercise, every training simulation, every historical battle had been analyzed and catalogued. Human strategists knew how aliens thought because they had made it their business to learn. They understood Volani pride, Threx aggression, and Nephtai caution better than those species understood themselves. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy lay broken and scattered across 3 star systems. Admiral Hyunwoo Lee received the battle reports aboard his flagship, Victory after victory, not just tactical success but complete domination. The alien powers had not just been defeated, they had been humiliated. Sir, we're receiving surrender. Offers from 14 different systems. Reported. Communications Officer Minji Han. The Nephtai Collective is requesting immediate ceasefire. Negotiations. What about the others? The Threks are withdrawing to their core worlds. The Villani are recalling all their fleets. Even the Loomis Energy Consortium is pulling back from contested territories. Hyunwoo allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The plan had worked. Humanity had revealed its true strength at exactly the right moment and in exactly the right way. But victory was only the beginning. Now came the hard part. Open a channel to all human colonies, he ordered. It's time to tell our people who they really are. Across human space, the message went out simultaneously. The protection they had lived under for generations was ending. The grateful, harmless humans their alien neighbors knew were gone forever. In their place stood a species that had spent 150 years preparing for war. A species that had turned deception into an art form, and strategic thinking into a weapon more powerful than any technology. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were really capable of when they stopped pretending to be weak, and that education was going to be written in fire and blood across the stars. General Taehyun Choi stood in the command bunker deep beneath the surface of New Seoul, watching tactical displays that showed the largest military alliance in galactic history gathering at the edge of human space. 17 different species, 4,000 star systems, over 1 million warships of every class and configuration, all of them coming to destroy humanity. Final intelligence reports, sir, said Colonel Ji-Hyun Kang, handing him a data tablet. The aliens have designated this Operation Final Solution. They intend to eliminate human civilization completely. How long until they reach the outer colonies? Taehyun asked. 48 hours, replied Naval Liaison Admiral Ji-Won Park via holographic projection from her flagship. My fleet is outnumbered 20 to 1, but we're in position to execute the opening phases of the Broken Mirror Protocol. Taehyun nodded. The Broken Mirror Protocol was humanity's most devastating strategic plan. Not a military doctrine in the traditional sense, but a psychological weapon designed to destroy enemy civilizations from within. Humans had learned something important during their centuries of observation. Advanced civilizations were incredibly fragile. Their social structures, belief systems, and cultural foundations could be shattered with the right pressure applied in the right places. What's the status on the Cultural Warfare Division? Taehyun inquired. Dr. Sung Jin-yu reports ready to begin broadcasting, Colonel Kang replied. His philosopher warrior teams have prepared targeted psychological campaigns for each enemy species. The aliens expected a conventional war. Fleet against fleet, world against world, technology against technology. They believed that their overwhelming numerical superiority would grind human resistance down through simple attrition. They had no idea what was actually coming. The first phase began when Admiral Ji-Won Park's fleet made contact with the alien armada in the Vega system. The human ships were vastly outnumbered, but they did not retreat. Instead, they broadcast a simple message across all communication frequencies. To all beings who serve the Galactic Alliance, the message began. Ask yourselves why you are here. Ask yourselves who benefits from this war. Ask yourselves what your leaders have told you about the species you have come to destroy. Then the human fleet vanished, not destroyed. Not retreating, vanished, using dimensional fold technology that allowed them to step outside normal space-time and reappear anywhere they chose. The alien commanders suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that could strike anywhere at any time and disappear before retaliation was possible, but the psychological warfare was just beginning. Dr. Sung Jin-yu had spent decades studying the foundational myths and belief systems that held alien civilizations together. Every species had contradictions in their cultural narratives. Every government had lies it needed its people to believe. The humans began exposing those lies. Villani citizens learned that their glorious commercial empire was built on the systematic exploitation of subjugated species. Historical documents that the government had hidden for centuries suddenly appeared on every information. Network Threx warriors discovered that their sacred breeding protocols were actually designed to keep the worker castes suppressed while the Noble castes maintained power. Genetic analysis that proved their society was built on biological fraud flooded their communication systems. Nephi. Thais intellectuals found evidence that their highly praised collective consciousness was maintained through chemical manipulation and neural suppression techniques. The individual thought patterns they feared were not dangerous. They were natural. Within days, the Great Alliance began to fracture. Sir, we're receiving reports of civil unrest across 14 enemy home systems, Colonel Kang reported. Mass protests, government buildings under siege, military units refusing orders. The Threx Third Fleet has turned on the Villani 7th Fleet, added Admiral Jiwan Park from her tactical position. They're accusing each other of historical war crimes. Taehyun allowed himself a grim smile. Phase 2. Begin the liberation campaigns. This was where human strategy became truly ruthless. Instead of trying to conquer alien worlds, they began liberating them, not through military occupation, but through the systematic destruction of the social structures that kept ordinary beings oppressed. Human special forces teams materialized on dozens of worlds simultaneously, but they were not there to kill soldiers or destroy military installations. They were there to free slaves, expose corruption, and arm revolutionaries. The humans are not trying to rule us, reported Threx worker caste leader Clicth to anyone who would listen. They are showing us how to rule ourselves. The psychological impact was devastating. Every species in the galaxy had subjugated populations, beings who had been told they were inferior, dangerous, or genetically unsuited for self-governance. The humans proved that these populations could not only govern themselves, they could do it better than their former masters. But the most powerful weapon in humanity's arsenal was truth. Citizens of the galaxy, Dr. Sungjin Yu broadcast from hidden transmitters throughout alien space. Your governments tell you that humans are primitive and dangerous. They say we threaten your way of life. But ask yourselves this question. If we are so primitive, how did we build the technology that allows us to speak to you now? If we are so dangerous, why are we freeing your enslaved populations instead of enslaving them ourselves? The broadcast continued for weeks, each one carefully crafted to exploit the specific psychological vulnerabilities of different species. But the message was always the same. The beings you fear are not your enemies. They are showing you that your leaders have been lying to you for centuries. The Great Alliance began to collapse not through military defeat, but through loss of moral authority. Sir, the Villani Empire has declared martial law on 17 worlds, Colonel Kang reported. They're trying to suppress the independence movements. And how's that working for them? Taehyun asked. It's not. The independence movements have access to human weapons and tactical support. Plus, every act of suppression just proves our point about the nature of their government. The war that was supposed to last years ended in months, not because humanity destroyed its enemies, but because those enemies destroyed themselves. Once beings across the galaxy realized that their governments had been built on lies and oppression, the old order became unsustainable. Species after species withdrew from the alliance as their own populations demanded freedom from the systems that had controlled them for generations. The Nephtai collective has dissolved, Admiral Jiwan Park reported. Individual Nephtai communities are establishing independent governments based on voluntary association. The Threx Empire has split into over 200 worker-controlled territories, added Colonel Kang. They're requesting human advisors to help establish democratic institutions. And the Villani? Total governmental collapse. Their commercial empire no longer exists. The former subject species are forming their own trade networks and defensive alliances. Taehyun looked at the tactical displays showing the current state of galactic civilization. Where once there had been vast empires controlling thousands of worlds, now there were hundreds of small, independent governments trying to figure out how to coexist peacefully. The humans had won the greatest military victory in galactic history without conquering a single world. They had destroyed their enemies by teaching those enemies' subjects how to free themselves. But victory came with a price that most humans had not anticipated. Sir, Colonel Kang said quietly, we're receiving reports of something troubling. Many of the newly liberated species are requesting that we stay and help them govern. That's not troubling, Taehyun replied. That's exactly what we expected. No, sir, you don't understand. They're not just requesting help. They're asking us to rule them. They believe that any species capable of orchestrating what we just accomplished should be in charge of galactic civilization. Taehyun felt a chill run down his spine. This was the nightmare scenario that human strategists had always feared. Victory so complete that it created dependence rather than independence. What's our response? President Min Jae-yoon is preparing a galaxy-wide address, Colonel Kang replied. She says it's time to explain to everyone why humanity cannot and will not become the new galactic government. The war that ended wars was over. But the greatest challenge for humanity was just beginning. They had proven they were the most powerful species in the galaxy. Now they had to prove they were wise enough not to use that power. The next phase of human strategy would be the most difficult of all, teaching the galaxy how to survive without them. President Min Jae-yoon stood before the recording equipment in her office, preparing to deliver what would be humanity's final message to galactic civilization. Through the windows behind her, she could see the lights of New Geneva, the capital city of the human republic. Soon those lights would be the only human lights visible from space. Madam President, said her chief advisor Dong-Yun Kim, are you certain this is the right choice? The galaxy is begging us to stay, to lead them. That's exactly why we have to leave, Min-jae replied. The moment we become their leaders, we become their masters. And masters always become tyrants, no matter how good their intentions. She activated the recording system and looked directly into the camera that would carry her words to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Citizens of the galaxy, I am President Min Jae-yoon of the Human Republic. 3 years ago, humanity revealed its true nature to the galaxy. We showed you technologies you thought impossible, and strategies you had never imagined. We dismantled governments that had oppressed their people for centuries, and helped birth new civilizations based on freedom and self-determination. She paused, gathering her thoughts for what came next. Many of you have asked us to stay, to guide your new governments and help you build a better galactic civilization. Your request honors us, but we must decline, not because we do not care about your future, but because we care too much to poison it with our presence. Behind her, through the office windows, the lights of the city were beginning to dim. The evacuation had already begun. Humanity has learned something about ourselves during these recent conflicts. We are not like other species. Our minds work differently. We see patterns where you see chaos. We think in terms of centuries where you think in terms of decades. We plan for contingencies that most beings cannot even imagine. She pulled up a holographic display, showing psychological analysis charts that had been classified until this moment. These abilities made us effective against the old galactic order. But they would make us terrible leaders of the new one. A species that thinks like we do cannot rule over species that think like you do. The relationship would inevitably become one of parent and child. And children who never learn to make their own decisions never truly grow up. The recording continued for 20 minutes. Min-jae explained humanity's decision to voluntarily exile themselves from the galaxy. She outlined the technological gifts they were leaving behind, including detailed instructions for building defensive systems that could protect against threats from beyond the galactic rim. But most importantly, she explained why humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was their absence. We have shown you that freedom is possible, that beings can govern themselves without masters or tyrants, that advanced technology does not require advanced oppression. Now you must prove that you can maintain these achievements without us. When the recording ended, Min-jae walked to her window and looked out at the nearly empty city. The Great Exodus had been planned for decades as the final phase of humanity's long strategy. Transport ships were loading the last evacuees, not just from Earth but from every human world throughout the galaxy. 4 billion people leaving behind everything they had built to venture into the darkness between galaxies. The final numbers, Madam President, reported Evacuation Coordinator Captain Suwon Lee. 99.7% of all humans have boarded the Exodus fleet. The remaining volunteers will maintain the automated systems until the last possible moment. And our destination? The Magellanic Clouds. Far enough away that we won't be tempted to interfere. Close enough that we can return if the galaxy faces an existential threat. Min-jae nodded. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Humanity would remove itself as a factor in galactic politics while positioning themselves to respond to dangers that the young civilizations might not be able to handle alone. Madam President, said Communications Director Jeon Park, we're receiving responses to your address. Thousands of them. What are they saying? They're begging us not to leave. The Volani remnant governments are offering us complete political control if we'll stay and maintain order. The Threx worker collectives want us to arbitrate their disputes. Even the newly independent colonies are requesting permanent human advisors. Which proves we're making the right choice, Minjay replied. The moment we become indispensable, we become dictators. She walked to her desk and picked up the small data crystal that contained humanity's final gift to the galaxy. Not technology or weapons, but knowledge. Everything they had learned about strategic thinking, social organization, and the patterns that drove civilizational development. This crystal contains our most important discoveries, she told her staff. The mathematical models that predict social collapse, the psychological principles that prevent tyranny, the economic theories that maintain prosperity without exploitation. She held up the crystal so it caught the light from the window, but we're not giving them the answers. We're giving them the tools to find their own answers. Will it be enough? Asked Dong-Yun Kim. It has to be, Minjay replied. Because if it's not, then we failed to prepare them properly. The final phase of evacuation began at midnight, Earth Standard Time. President Min Jae-yoon was among the last to board the transport ships, standing on the platform as the final automated systems completed their shutdown sequences. Madam President, said Captain Soo-won Lee, the deep space scanners are picking up something interesting. Long-range sensors show massive structures moving in the void between galaxies, heading toward the galactic rim. Min-jae felt her blood run cold. How massive? Larger than anything we've ever seen. Each structure is roughly the size of a small moon, and there are hundreds of them. This was why humanity had developed their advanced technology, not to conquer the galaxy, but to prepare it for threats that were coming from beyond the known universe. How long until they reached the outer rim? Approximately 50 years. Min-jae smiled grimly. Just enough time for the new civilizations to mature and learn to work together. Assuming they use the tools we're leaving them. She took one last look at Earth through the transport window. The planet looked peaceful in the starlight, but she knew that somewhere on its surface the automated systems were already beginning their work. Deep beneath the planet's crust, the hidden vaults were opening, the same kind of vaults that archaeologist Kethmar had discovered on Kepler Station 300 years in the future. Vaults containing technology, knowledge, and warnings about what was coming. Set course for the Magellanic Clouds, she ordered. The human Exodus fleet was the largest migration in galactic history. 4 billion people in 10,000 ships, carrying with them the accumulated knowledge and technology of the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever known. But they were not fleeing in defeat. They were repositioning for the next phase of their eternal mission. As the fleet moved into the darkness between galaxies, automated broadcast systems throughout human space began transmitting humanity's final message to the civilizations they had helped create. To the beings who will inherit this galaxy, the message began, we leave you these gifts not as masters leaving instructions for servants, but as older siblings preparing younger ones for challenges we know are coming. In 50 years, perhaps less visitors will arrive from beyond our galaxy. They will be unlike anything you have encountered before. They will test everything you have learned about cooperation, strategy, and the defense of freedom. We have given you the tools to face this test. Advanced defensive technology, social models that prevent the concentration of power in the hands of tyrants, economic systems that reward cooperation over exploitation. But tools are useless without the wisdom to use them properly. That wisdom must come from you. You must learn to think like free beings rather than like subjects. You must plan for centuries rather than years. You must see patterns that others miss and prepare for contingencies that others cannot imagine. If you succeed, you will not need our return. You will have become what we always hoped you could be. If you fail, we will know, and we will come back to stand with you against whatever threatens the freedom we helped you achieve. The marks we have left will never be mended because they were never meant to be temporary. They are scars that remind you that freedom is possible, that tyranny can be overthrown, that beings who think for themselves are stronger than any force that tries to control them. Remember us not as your saviors, but as your teachers, and teach your children that the greatest strength is knowing when not to use your power. The message ended, but the automated systems continued broadcasting it across the galaxy for years afterward. Every new civilization that achieved space travel would eventually hear humanity's final words. Back on Kepler Station 300 years later, archaeologist Kethmar finished reading the final data crystal. The chamber around him seemed different now that he understood what he had discovered. This was not just an archaeological site. It was a classroom. A final exam left by teachers who had graduated their students and moved on to face new challenges. "Kethmar," called Vex from the entrance to the chamber. "Long-range sensors are picking up something approaching the galactic rim. Something large,